Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno's Best Comics of the Week, and this is the show where I review all the comics I've read this week in one show. We go least favorite to best pick of the week and everything in between, and before I get started, I do have a Kickstarter going on right now for my superhero book Like Father Like Daughter. It's about a high school girl. Father left her to become a full-time superhero. Everyone in the world loves him except for her, and then she inherits his abilities. And this is the arc where we get to see that dad has now died, and she does take up the mantle of her father while dealing with her grief and dealing with that complicated relationship. So hopefully you guys could go check it out. I actually have a cover also from the artist of Absolute Martian Manhunter, which we're going to talk about this week. So really excited about that campaign. And also at the end of the video, we talk about the viewer's pick of the week. So in the comments below, let me know your pick of the week for a chance to be featured on the episode. And be sure to give this video a like because it really does help the channel. Now let's jump in. I did have a pretty average sized haul. I believe it was 12 books. And number 12 for me is part of the topic of the video, and that is the Amazing Spider-Man issue 2. I actually didn't hate the last issue. I thought it was a better direction for Amazing Spider-Man than we've been getting, and I think a lot of that promise didn't quite happen here. Instead, we get to see Spider-Man hallucinating for most of the issue. We get to see him visit his girlfriend, which I still don't love the story arc of, you're on probation, I don't actually like you. And it's like, then what's the point of them being together and having screen time with each other? I'd rather him just be single if he's not allowed to be with Mary Jane or not allowed to have an interesting relationship at all. And that's a big element here. And you get to see this character I'm not as familiar with. Maybe it's a new Spider-Man character, Itsy Bitsy. And I was like, okay, that doesn't really excite me as much as Rhino or some of the other characters we saw in that first issue. I just felt like a lot of the things I enjoyed about that first issue deflated here just because you wanted the hallucination story that maybe would be good for like an issue 10, but to jump right into this book, I just didn't think it worked for this issue. So giving that one 2 stars, and that is number 12. Moving on to number 11, which is Justice League Unlimited issue 6, another book I've been kind of on the fence for because I like the idea of having these B-list, C-list heroes have a place to shine. I'm a big Carol Ferris fan, which is honestly probably the reason why I've been sticking around with this, because I'm just like, I just want to see Carol, but honestly, she's also in Green Lantern Corps and Green Lantern, so I'm like, do I need this book? And this issue in particular just really got me out of it. It's tying into the World's Finest stuff, which I don't read. We can see Gorilla Grodd and really focus more on him and this other character who's a newer character. And I just kind of want to see the Justice League. I want to see the character pieces of them being a team, and it just kind of lost the thread for me. Artwork is good, but it's not something I just feel invested in, so I probably will drop it for the time being unless there's a huge Carol Ferris arc that comes up, and you guys will have to keep me updated on that. So giving that 2 stars, and that is number 11. Moving on to number 10, a book that tends to get delayed a lot, and that is Lilith issue 3. I always have a good time with it because I like vampires, I enjoyed this potential queer relationship, but it is hard to get into every issue because you kind of forgot what happened last issue that you read like 4 months ago, and now you're reading this issue. But it has some whimsy to it that I enjoy. I like the coloring for this book. I like the potential mystery of these books and what these books have to say about our main character. And honestly, the thing I actually enjoy the most is just seeing the relationships develop between the other vampire, obviously between our potential love interest and her family. So I like the characters enough to continue reading it, and I like the vibe and look of the book, but I do wish it was just a little bit more consistent when it comes to the release schedule. So overall, giving that one 3 stars, I believe. I gave that 3 stars. So moving on to number 9, which is Absolute Wonder Woman issue 7. I like this book, but it's not my favorite of the Absolute titles, but I understand why it's other people's favorites. I'm just not a huge Wonder Woman fan. When it gets into that Greek mythology aspect, it's just not something I feel as invested in, but I like the character work. I enjoyed the artwork a lot for this. I really, really love this artist, and I hope to see them more in DC, but also just this book in general. But I also like the relationship between Wonder Woman and Circe, but the things around it, I'm like, oh, I'm not as invested in these 2 characters that are showing up around them, but I like their relationship. I enjoy their mother-daughter dynamic, and that's kind of what made the issue for me. So overall, giving that 3.5 stars, and that is number 8, I believe. That was number 9. We're moving on to number 8, the other Absolute title that came out this week, and that is Absolute Martian Manhunter issue 2. I like how trippy it is. Obviously, I think the first issue dug a little deeper into his world. This is literally him just on a trip of, am I a Martian? Am I not? What's going on with my head? And I think the writer and artist does a really good job at selling that and making you curious about the mystery of what are the white Martians? Does this Martian character exist if Mars really doesn't have aliens? There's a lot of interesting elements that keeps you going on for the mystery. Do I want this trippiness every issue? I don't know, but I think it worked for the second issue, which is so weird because it worked for this, but didn't work for Amazing Spider-Man. But I think you just it kind of sold you on the idea that this is going to be a psychedelic story from issue 1, and Amazing Spider-Man didn't quite do it. But it is interesting they both kind of had a similar second issue in that regard. But I do think this delivered that in a better way from the artwork to the storytelling. So overall, giving that one 3.5 stars, and that is number 8. I am actually surprised to see what number 7 is. This is usually my pick of the week, but it went a little lower for this issue, and that's Superman issue 25. I just thought the Lex villain stuff lasted too long, like it's mostly a fight issue, but I liked what came of it. I enjoyed seeing our Lex, who's become a better person, have this warped view of being a hero and saying, well, I will kill someone if it means helping my family and helping the city, and I am the true hero of tomorrow. And we get to see that wedge put in between Superman and Lex Luthor that I enjoyed, but it took a little while to get to that point, and I didn't love the cliffhanger with Lois losing her powers. I've actually been enjoying her being a hero. It seems like most people have. I'm obviously curious to see where that's gonna go, but I think you kind of lose something if you do keep that as a permanent loss, because it doesn't feel like the arc is over either. I can almost understand it's like putting the toys back in the toy box situation where it's like Lois can't have powers forever, but there's so much story to be developed there. And again, maybe I'm reacting too soon, and next issue she'll have her powers back, but I just didn't love that point at the end. So giving this one 3.5 stars, not a bad issue. There's definitely a lot of interesting character work here. It just wasn't my favorite out of the run. So giving that one number 7. Moving on to number 6, which is Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man issue 5. It's the last of this prequel series. If you haven't watched the television show, great show. Kind of reminds you of all the reasons why you love Spider-Man, but in a new modern take. And that's what this issue does too. It reminds me of classic Spider-Man storytelling with a new twist. Yeah, if you just miss Spider-Man storytelling and you're not particularly enjoying The Amazing Spider-Man, I think this is a great, fun, palate cleanser type book. So giving that 3.5 stars, and that is number 6. Moving on to number 5, a book I think people have been harsh on, and that is Batman issue 159. This is the second part of Batman Hush. I like the classic look to it. I'm still questioning where this takes place, and that's still kind of a nitpick for me, but I like the character work. I enjoy Batman saving Joker here and the consequences of that, how Jason reacts, how the rest of the Bat family reacts, and just how in character that would be for Batman to save Joker, and again, the consequences of that and Hush being in the background. I just felt like it really worked as a Batman story, and it's been a while since we've had this style of Batman story without it feeling like it's fully leaning into nostalgia. It also feels like it's exploring stories that are obvious that just aren't explored as often. So giving that one 4 stars, and that is number 5. Moving on to number 4, which is Green Lantern issue 22. I love this book, and I just feel like every issue is such a fun, like, little episode of television where you get a lot explored. You get a lot between Carol and Hal. You even get the DEO in this one where they have to deal with them. Some of the villains they have to fight, Hector Hammond, and then having a new kind of Blue Beetle character, Silver Beetle, in this issue, all while having Spectre, and I think Hawkman was in the end of this issue too. There's a lot of characters that don't usually get screen time, that have a lot of screen time here, that makes this feel bigger than just a Green Lantern book, but also doesn't feel like it's losing the thread by making it a whole nother book and not focusing on Hal and the rest of the Green Lanterns. I think it's just a really well-balanced book that makes it feel worldly, which is exactly what you want from a Green Lantern series, all while progressing that plot as well. So giving that 4 stars, and that is number 4. Moving on to my top 3, this was actually really hard. I don't remember the last time I've had 3 books as 4.5 star books, but here we are, and I really loved all 3 for different reasons, and we're gonna jump into that. So number 3 for me is The Last Boy issue 2. I really enjoyed this book because I feel like it's something different from Peter Pan, and the way they dealt with the Captain Hook death I thought was really well done here, all while Wendy is also looking for an adult version of escapism with her storytelling and seeing what's going on with her dad. I just feel like they dealt with the character moments really well, where, the cliffhanger, it could have really kind of went anywhere. You could have ignored Captain Hook's death, but here you get to see the Lost Boys, and you get to see them as grown-ups, but it doesn't go the easy route as, like, of the idea of Peter Pan just being like, oh, I just want to be a kid. It's him being younger and being kind of wide-eyed without saying, I just want to be a kid and never want to grow up. It's a little bit more subtle, that theme, and I think that's what makes this book work so well, and it's a really well-done follow-up to what I thought was a really great first issue. So giving that one 4.5 stars, and that is number 3. Moving on to number 2, so this was recommended by Comic Book Corner 2.0, Mike Spiderslayer, and then when I went to the comic book store was also like, you have to pick up this book. And also this is the second half of the title of this video, and that's Predator vs. Spider-Man, issue 1. I didn't know how to feel about this because I don't really know anything about Predator, and what I really liked about this book, and I don't know if Predator fans will, you really don't need to know anything about Predator to enjoy it. And what I love about this book is that it feels like classic Spider-Man, Peter Parker in the Daily Bugle getting yelled at by J. Jonah Jameson, still married to Mary Jane too, which I thought was a very interesting tidbit for this book, because like every other book, Peter's allowed to be married to Mary Jane except the main title. But what I loved about this book was the tilt, right? The thing that made it feel different, which was like this very sunny, hot day. Everything's orange and almost hellscape-like as Peter realizes there's a serial killer in New York, and Peter Parker has to deal with that as a Daily Bugle photographer, but also has to deal with it as Spider-Man. Mary Jane might have gotten hurt as well in this issue. It just was a really cool setup to, I think, something that could be a really great miniseries, and again, tell a different tone for Spider-Man that we haven't seen in a while still keeping it as a Spider-Man book and keeping it classic. Kraven shows up in the end of this issue. Of course, if you're gonna have this style of storytelling, it's gonna be a Kraven story as well. I just thought it was a really superb Spider-Man book. So if you're a fan of Spider-Man, pick this one up. And if you're a fan of Predator, hopefully you find something you like from it. I think you will, but it's not as Predator heavy as I expected from, the movie franchise, but I think the idea of Predator is really present in here. So giving that one 4.5 stars, and that's number 2. Moving on to number 1, and this was just more personal preference than anything, and that is Arcana issue 6. I love a character-driven story, and this book just kind of sucks you in when it comes to those character beats, where our main character really tracks back with her relationship with her mother and why they are so strained. The mystery continues with her and her grandfather, and why the mom might have kept some of the stuff with her grandfather a secret, all while our main character is also reconnecting with her previous best friend, who I also think they had a romantic relationship, and you get to see that grow in a really cool, organic way. And I just loved every single character beat here, and I just had a really good time reading this issue, and I think it's a very under-the-radar series. So that is my pick of the week. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno. Let me know in the comments below what your pick of the week was, and last week's pick of the week was Absolute Flash, and here are some comments about that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno, and I'll see you guys in the next one.